Pastor Roy Gerhardt from Galloway United Methodist Church in Franklin, Pennsylvania, sharing a few words of encouragement to help us follow after Jesus. Well, it's time for a word for Wednesday, and our word this week after Easter is resurrection. That's what Easter is all about. And resurrection is a pivotal belief and hope that we hold as Christians. We believe that Jesus physically died on a cross and physically rose up from the dead. We also believe and have a hope that Jesus promised us that he could raise us up from the dead as well to eternal life. So how do we know? How do we know that Jesus was resurrected? Well, we base this on the testimony of eyewitnesses, people who were there and who saw it happen, his disciples and followers who were with Jesus after he was raised, as well as before when he was crucified. But what gives them credibility? A lot of people would say they made it up. They got to this point where their heroic leader had died and they made up this story. They said, hey, he told us he was going to rise up from the dead, so let's make it happen, and that they've simply fabricated the story. But I want to throw out a few things to you that says that's nonsense. These stories are legit. Number one, when we read about the encounters with Jesus after his resurrection, we see that the people who encountered him were not expecting to find him alive. Now that's important because if you're going to make up this story, it seems like it's something where you are disappointed and you're trying to fill in the gaps. But if you are not expecting it to happen, you're going to go on with your life sadly disappointed. And let me tell you, the disciples show up on Resurrection Day, not expecting to find Jesus alive, even though he had told them that he would rise from the dead. The women went to the tomb with stuff that was for a dead body. They were going there expecting to find a dead body that they would attend to. When they came back and told the disciples that Jesus' body wasn't there, that angels had told them that he was alive, they thought the women were crazy, that their words were nonsense. These are not people with expectations, waiting, excitedly looking forward to his resurrection, or even willing to believe it when it happened. Peter ran to the tomb along with John. John seemed to come away believing, but Peter, he is not believing it. So they, number one, went there not expecting it, not prepared then to create a story to fill in the gaps. And the skepticism persisted. We see this with Peter continuing to have doubts, even though he saw the empty tomb, even though he heard other people talking about it, he has to see and meet Jesus himself. Like Thomas. Thomas also is like, no way, no how am I going to believe this? You've got to look at these guys and say, man, they have got to have some real proof and evidence before they are going to hang their hat on this man Jesus again. And think about grief. Some people may clutch at vain hopes, imaginary kinds of explanations, but these guys are experiencing real grief and loss. And they are not willing to simply buy in again and say, oh, sure, that sounds great that Jesus is alive again. It has to be something real, or they're not attaching any hope to this at all. And Thomas is what a great ambassador for all of those with skepticism and doubt, that he says, I won't believe you guys talking about this, not until I put my fingers where they pierced his hands with the nails, till I find the place where the spear went into his side. You see, these are people then, they don't expect it. They're filled with the skepticism that says, we're not just buying into this. So these are not just a bunch of myth makers who are ready to jump into any old story. Let me tell you another thing. The testimony that is put forth in the Gospels is one that has a historic ring and credibility to it, because they don't have the marks of a fantasy where you're going to have some superhero who's going to come and reveal this wonderful news. No, I want you to take note that it was women who first went to the tomb, women who first testified about Jesus, and even some of the people who first brought the news about Jesus' resurrection, like the guys on the road to Emmaus, doesn't necessarily sound like they were amongst the 12, the closest inner circle, but were regular followers of Jesus, kind of hanging around the crowd. Let me tell you something. That is not the way that you put together a story that you want to immediately have credibility, because women weren't given credibility in court to testify in that culture. So this is a story where you have to tell it like it happened, not the way that you think it maybe should be told, or the way that you would try to shape it to get better credibility. This is a story of people who didn't expect to experience something that revolutionary changed their lives, that they were willing to live and die proclaiming that Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. May God bless you today, and as you share his good news, may God make you a blessing wherever he takes you.